come to realize that Emma and I are what happens when a Taylor Swift bisexual and a Lord bisexual become friends. Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Emma Makes Me Read Romance Books. I've done this once before for the month of February, and wow, was it truly just so much. Where we left off last time was that I was very impressed with the amount of discussion around like emotional intimacy, but was less so impressed with how that nuance never really seemed to translate over to the sexual part of the protagonists' relationships. I felt often ended up just kind of like reinforcing a lot of heteronormative kind of expectations and standards. So I'm excited to see where this round takes us. So Emma has provided a list of 6 books for me, 2 of which I have already read, okay? Because we had a bit of a false start. We'll get into it later. The one I'm going to start listening to today is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, which Emma recommended to me because it's my favorite book of the year and truly summer vibes for days and yearning, which hello. We're gonna get into it very shortly because somebody needs a WALK. Loki! I'm already like 60% of the way through the People We Meet on Vacation audiobook. So far, very much enjoying it, but we're gonna get into that more later because first we need to talk about the audiobook I already listened to, and that is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. Emma chose this one for me because I informed her that I would be reading it. So this one is about Danny Brown, who is a bisexual witch getting her PhD, which is of interest to me. Okay, and then her friend Zafia, who is a former professional rugby player with a tragic past, who is now working as a security guard in the building where she teaches. And then through circumstances they end up fake dating and then for real falling in love, because I mean that's what we're doing here. At first I was a bit about this one because it features the former professional athlete as the love interest, which is, this is like the 3rd time I've encountered this and I'm over it. But part of the story is that Zafia is a huge romance book reading, okay? We get a little meta, okay? There's an acknowledgement that like fake dating isn't a thing that happens in real life. Okay, there's layers. There's a part where Danny catches him accidentally listening to a romance book at a particularly steamy moment, and then he is like freaking out, being like, oh my god, does this woman think I'm a pervert? I don't know what it was for me that really did it, and I was like, okay, I'm on board. I like this one way better than Chloe Brown. The pacing is so much better. I even like the characters more, even though it is a similar dynamic in terms of like a gruff Northern English man who is just kind of very like naturally protective and caring, you know what I'm saying? This one felt like it had a lot more communication about sex, and it just felt like it was very like naturally a part of the story, which I very much appreciated. But something that reading this book really brought up for me is, why are the women never masturbating? Okay, in general, in the sampling of the genre that I have read thus far, but then also specifically in this series. With Danny Brown, she talks about like using vibrators and that kind of stuff, so it's like clearly like a part of her life, but it's not like in the story in the way that it is with the men that I have to read about. You know what I'm saying? Like what is going on? However, this is the only one that's mentioned butt stuff so far, so you know, something to note on the sex chart. It's been a few days already. Whoops. I have finished People We Meet on Vacation. However, because Emily Henry is a menace to society, I'm gonna need a minute before I can like really talk about it. But that's okay, because we still need to talk about one other book that I read previous to the official beginning of this journey, and that is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. Emma chose this book for me, and I quote, "It is so much fun." And I will be the judge of that. This story is about Stella, who is a woman working in something to do with econometrics, I think, maybe, who has autism, and she does not have a lot of experience with like relationships, romance, sex, dating, you know what I'm saying? And so she decides to hire a male escort to try to teach her so she can have more experience. But of course, they fall in love. What I liked about the book is that it was very cute, but also pretty sexy, okay? We love a sweet and spicy moment. I also love the representation of both of the characters in terms of Stella and autism, and then Michael being half Swedish, half Vietnamese. Also inherent to the plot of this book is awkwardness around having sex that really needed to like be discussed. What I disliked about this is that it was very heterosexual. There was a lot of like, I looked at my soft feminine hand in his masculine palm. I'm the softness to his hardness. Like, Helen, what are we doing here? It gave me like weirdly gendered and aggressive washroom sign vibes. Like, are you the plug or the plug in? You know what I'm saying? It also did reinforce some misconceptions about sex work, because even though obviously Michael as a sex worker is like a fully realized character, and for him this is not, it's just something that he felt like he can do in order to earn money, but it's not something he's particularly enjoys, which is definitely the case for some people, but is not representative of the sex worker experience broadly. But then also specifically there's kind of this reinforcing of the idea that you can't be a sex worker and be in a relationship, and that is somehow cheating, which for this character and for I'm sure many people that could absolutely be the case, but it's not like, if you're a sex worker and you're in a relationship, you're not cheating through your job. I also found the denouement, okay, very odd. I felt like the pacing was really off. The way that they got back together was kind of strange to the story. It didn't really flow or fit, but I really liked it up until like the main conflict point. We need to talk about people we met on vacation. I forgot from this angle that you can see all of my bras. Anyway, actually first we need to talk about this shirt that Emma got me because it's perfection. The plot of this book is the following. We have Poppy and we have Alex, and they met in college and they have been best friends ever since then. They're both from somewhere in Ohio, you know how it is. A lot of their friendship was forged through traveling, because Poppy became a like budget travel vlogger and eventually was writing for like a luxury travel magazine. The only thing is that right away, the first trip that they take together as college students in Chicago is to literally where I live on Vancouver Island. However, as we very soon find out, that there was something that caused a rift and they haven't spoken since. And so the book is about them reconciling and going on this vacation. I absolutely loved the flashbacks, okay, to the previous trips, to the present. I loved the yearning. Ooh, Emma was so right. This book is 100% yearning. And the building up of their friendship and the like slowest burn, okay? Ooh. I very much like that this book addresses the collateral damage in terms of the other people that two best friends who are in love with each other date, because they're too scared to tell each other as friends that they're in love. If you have partook in the reading of a romance novel, the plot of all romance books is essentially the same in terms of the major points of, I mean, it is with every book really, but this is the only book I've read so far where I could see the major conflict coming, and I was so scared of it happening that I had to fully stop listening to it. Also, I should mention it was narrated by Juliet Whalen, and it was so good. And although the couple themselves very heterosexual, all of the side characters were gay, which I appreciated. The reason this vlog is an absolute shambles is because I am both in the process of finishing and like submitting my thesis in order to graduate in time, and I'm also moving. So it's been a little much. About a week ago, I defended my thesis successfully, which is great. However, after that, I needed to just lie down for several hours because it was a very intense experience. And then the next day, we had to pack up the entire house for about kind of like a week straight. So I haven't had a lot of time to give any updates. However, I did finish the last 3 books by August 30th. Okay, so it did happen. I just did not have time to talk about it at all. But we have time now. Okay, so let's talk about Honey Girl. Emma recommended this one to me because, I quote, "It is so sweet." And I listened to it on audiobook, and it was narrated by York Whitaker, but written by Morgan Rogers. Okay, so let's get into it. This book is about Grace Porter, who has just graduated from her PhD in astronomy. Okay, what a flex. So she's living in Portland, and she has this whole plan for how her life is gonna go in terms of her career and everything, because wow, is this woman a Virgo. Not only is she a Virgo, she's also grown up with a military father who she only refers to as Colonel. So, you know, a lot to unpack there. Part of her perfect plan is getting set up into a job interview that her like mentor was kind of funneling her into with this company. However, being a queer Black woman, it became very apparent in the interview that she just like wasn't part of the company culture. And she said, fuck that, and walked out. Part of her realizing that the plan wasn't gonna work is that she gets married to a stranger in Vegas. I was interrupted yesterday. Absolute chaos. I just woke up. I'm eating peanut butter and cheese toast. Okay, don't come for me. Okay, it's good. Essentially, we get to a point where Grace wakes up to a very kind of cryptic and vague note that's left to her by the woman that she married. And it kind of, I was like, ooh, okay, wasn't like sold on the story at this point, because it was written in a way that was like, nobody talks like this. Like, what? You would think you'd want to write more kind of pertinent, practical information after having married a stranger in Vegas. You know what I'm saying? However, as the story went on, I was like, okay, fine. I get it. Also because this is truly a plot that only works with sapphic characters. In this case, specifically lesbians. Plot would not work in any other situation. I did end up really enjoying it. I really loved their very like queer chosen families that they lived with. Everybody in this book is queer and or a person of color, which is excellent. I also much preferred the way and the types of like millennial topics are discussed in this one, as opposed to like People We Meet on Vacation, which was very just like, oh, millennial ennui, I've met all my career goals, what do I do now? Like it was, whereas this one was talking more about like Grace having to navigate a horrifically white field in the sciences, how that's gonna work with her in the like collapsing job market, as well as like some pretty like intense mental health issues, and like finding a therapist that can like understand your experiences in like a systemic way. Okay, now I need to go get ready because we're about to have the Nora Roberts Power Hour. Get ready. I don't know if it's become apparent, but I've kind of run out of nice spaces to film in my room since like everything is gone. But here we are, and wow, are we here to talk about Nora Roberts yet again. So the book that I read for this month was The Hollow, but it's actually the second in the Sign of Seven trilogy, which is a series that I was lightly bullied into reading by Emma. And the first one is called Blood Brothers, which I'd read previously, but haven't talked about yet. So I thought we'd do like a 2-in-1 situation, give you a little feel for the trilogy thus far. For the plot, we have 3 boys who all have the same birthday, okay, which is July 7th. We have Caleb, Fox, and Gage. They've been friends forever. On their 10th birthday, they accidentally release a demon in their local town of Hawkins Hollow, because where else would we be except for a small town in New England? And so every 7 years on their birthday week, the demon wreaks havoc on this like lovely little town. This is also very specifically linked to Pilgrim times, you know what I'm saying? The East Coast settlement. So the next sevens is like upon us, and it's clear that this time is gonna be like the last time, you know what I'm saying? So of course, because there are 3 men, 3 women also show up who are also friends. So we have Quinn, she's like a supernatural investigator writer person, and then her friend Sybil, who she's known since college, and she helps her with her like investigations. Then we have Layla, who is a woman that they become friends with because she was kind of like compelled to come to the Hollow. Very similar to the 3 Sisters Island trilogy. This one is much scarier, but has better romantic relationships. Also, the sex in this trilogy thus far has been much like shorter and like less weird, which is a blessing because it's never really been Nora's strong suit. First book is about Cal and Quinn. Cal owns the local bowling alley, which I was like, really? Really? Okay. But you know, small town community hub, I get it. Cal was also very specifically supposed to be just like kind of a better version of Zach Todd from the last book, the like local cop man, because in this case, Cal has more sisters and is much less likely to own a gun. See what I'm saying? So just a better version of the kind of like white, straight, wholesome, like American man kind of vibe. Although he does say things about how like the word tidying is too feminine, so his ass is like definitely unwashed. Quinn was very fun. Loved her. The only drawback with her characterization was that really toxic diet culture stuff was like so integral to her personality and like featured very prominently in like her inner monologue, but then also just like the way that she relates to other people, which is off-putting. However, I did love that there's a part where she like very quickly falls in love with Cal because like this is what we're doing here, you know what I'm saying? But she knows that he doesn't quite know it yet, so she tells him and he's like a little shook and she's like, oh my god, this poor man doesn't even know that he's in love with me yet. And I love that energy. My general impressions of the first book is that it was written by somebody who has fucking had it with winter. Okay, Nora needed to go on vacation when she was writing this book. She also came for the Pilgrims. Oh, Nora had time with this series. I also believe that she is sponsored and has a role to play in the Coke versus Pepsi like corporate warfare. Okay, so now we get to the second book in the trilogy, The Hollow, which is the one that I actually read this month. Okay, so this one was about Fox and Layla, which I was so excited for, okay? But unfortunately, in true Nora fashion, the second book did not get as much kind of attention paid to it. I do not feel like the relationship was done justice, especially because Fox is the only man character I've ever cared about that Nora has written, okay? The fact that he was raised by like hippie, progressive, feminist parents, especially his mom, was like, it's a big deal. That's a big character point. I enjoyed the trajectory of the relationship in terms of like the different points of tension I thought were really, really interesting. There were some very interesting discussions around like boundaries and stuff, which I was like, ooh, okay, 2008 work. This one was also a little bit less scary and just more like sad. But I did enjoy the general thesis of the book, which is about like appreciating the small things amidst chaos. However, a quandary that these books have brought up for me, and also the other trilogy, is why is everyone kissing each other on the mouth? Like, not the people that are dating, but like everyone is kissing everyone on the mouth. Like, what is going on in New England? This whole pandemic has me been putting on an ounce of makeup and being like, I am the one. We're here today to talk about the final book that Emma suggested for me, and that is The Cottage on Pumpkin and Vine by Kate, Engel, and two other people. She suggested this one for me as a wild card because it is a romance anthology book set in a Halloween town, which is fitting because there's been a definite shift in the weather, and I have the remnants of my iced pumpkin spice latte that I've been like microdosing throughout the week in this wine glass because I am so sensitive to caffeine. Alright, so let's get into it. So this book has 3 stories set in the fictional town of Moonbright, Maine, because again, small town New England is the only place people fall in love apparently. And the center's around a bed and breakfast called Rose Cottage that hosts these like amazing Halloween parties in this town that just absolutely goes nuts for Halloween. It's owned by Amelia Rose, who has a little bit of like a witchy mystical person, and there's this whole kind of magic around the cottage where people always like fall desperately in love at these parties or just like when they stay there. This book was essentially a Hallmark movie but with Dick in it, and I loved it. It was so cozy and charming and then like surprisingly sexy. We had a crystal ball as a plot point, okay? A mystical Maine Coon. Like, what else could you really want? I also love that all the stories were people who had like known each other for a while and then just like realizing that they were like attracted and also in love with each other. So that was fun. It was so fun, especially because I read this on ebook. I previously have had a hard time with ebooks because Part of the reason why I enjoy reading so much is because it's something to do that's on a screen. I found it hard to get into the ebooks I tried before, but they were all kind of like more literature-y, kind of more serious, you know what I'm saying, in this format. Romance ebooks, okay, I'm just now figuring out what everyone's mom knew 10 years ago, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. Enjoyed the experience so much that I decided to read the second one, which I knew Emma wasn't as taken with, but I still wanted to give it a try, and it was called The Bake Shop at Pumpkin and Spice, okay? And this is exactly the same thing, 3 stories centering on one establishment in Moonbright, but this time it was an Italian bakery, okay, with some Italian women who have a little bit of hereditary magic in them that has to do with giving people magic cookies to fall in love. I still enjoyed it, not as good as the first one though. This one was more kind of involved in the community, a lot more community characters, you know what I'm saying? So that kind of fleshed out the small townness of it all. This one was also much less sexy. Hard shift there. Also, everyone got engaged for some reason, which was a choice and also a lot more troubling because this set of stories, 2 out of the 3 were like insta-loves. Emma has informed me that a third one in fact just came out on August 31st and I am waiting with bated breath for either Scribd or my library to acquire it, and I swear to God it better come through by October because I need this, okay? I don't know who I've become, but I need this now. Welcome to the wrap-up chair. I really enjoyed this reading journey that we went on. Romance books part 2. Okay, thank you again so much to Emma for giving me all these thoughtful recommendations and for responding to all of my message where I aggressively texted her about almost everything that I read. Had a good range, you know what I'm saying? Lots of different experiences covered, different kind of areas within the genre. Overall, I thought that there were more conversations about sex embedded in a lot of these books, which I was really happy to see, you know, except for the ones that were like Hallmark movie. The Hollow did have a lot of conversations about it. The other thing that I've talked about Emma with before and I'm finding really hard to kind of reconcile is how trippy of an experience it is reading these books that feature women authors writing from the perspectives of their men characters about them kind of like perceiving women and oftentimes kind of objectifying them, and like it's a wild experience and I still don't really know what to do with that. I'm sorry this was so much of a catch-up session and less of a vlog. I hope it was still enjoyable, but thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye!